And welcome back to another episode of The Lateral Live. I am Mike Settle. That is Dustin Franklin. Dustin, week one in the books. A lot happened, but week one is one of those things where we don't really know enough about anyone just yet. A lot of week one results end up looking kind of silly later on in the season. I remember that Notre Dame Texas game where we thought both of those teams were back, and those teams ended up being under 500 that season. So, you just never know really what to make of week one, but we have at least we have something we can go off of while judging these teams for week two. Overall thoughts on week one, real quick.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. It's tough to tell in week one what you're going to get because, it's a new season. You can't say, well, last week they looked like this. It's a whole different season with the off season. Plus, we're coming off such a weird 2020 season where there's so many moving parts due to the COVID pandemic.
Right.
I thought we saw a lot of good action last week.
Yeah.
There was some things to build on for a lot of programs. Some red flags and questions were raised for some other programs. Looking at never mind. We'll save that. But I really like the way that Florida State looked. I like the way
we go.
like the way that Texas looked.
Yes.
I laughed at Miami's, which is always fun. It was a good week of football. I have huge questions about Clemson.
Okay. Let's shelve that really quick. I'm going to come back to you on that because I want to hear real quick. My big red flag, and I agree with you, a lot of good action. Like what I saw out of Florida State, there's a lot of issues still, but there's a lot to be hopeful for, and I think that's what matters the most. Great game on Sunday night. Glad I got to see you. Great atmosphere there in Doak Campbell. It's kind of crazy what the difference. I mean, honestly, Notre Dame's a better football team, more talented, and I honestly think the atmosphere made a difference that night, and that's kind of wow, that's something that's very unique to college football. Real quick, Dustin, my big red flag. We're going to go out to L.A., wear them sissy blue shirts. My man is Gene Chizik in a mask. Ed O, you stink, pal. You stink. He's not going to be there much longer, Dustin. His seat is warm. I know he just won a title 2 years ago. Gene Chizik did this. It doesn't matter. It's what have you done for me lately? They do not look like a good football team from top to bottom. And one of their big red flags, which I thought was actually going to be a plus this year, is quarterback. I don't know what they're doing with him. He doesn't look good. The offensive line doesn't look as good as I thought it would look. They don't have a great run game, although it's not bad. But UCLA did whatever they wanted to, especially in the second half. I'm really high on that UCLA team. Now, again, week one, you never know. But I hate to be high on a Chip Kelly team because you know how I feel. But I think I have not very nice things to say about Chip Kelly, the general manager in the NFL. But I got a lot of nice things to say about Chip Kelly, the college football coach. I think we saw that on Saturday against LSU.
Yeah, and it is tough. Like you said, it's tough to get too high on a team after week one. But this is 2 weeks in a row that UCLA's looked good. I thought they looked really good against Hawaii, which it's Hawaii. But I expected that game to be closer than it was. Then they come out and do that to LSU. You're right. Ed Orgeron, his seat is sizzling. And to be honest with you, it should be for other reasons other than on-field play.
Absolutely.
So I was always a Ed Orgeron fan. I made a lot of excuses for him when his teams were bad. I thought that he inherited some crap situations, and I thought that he was a good coach, and he's an entertaining interview. So I always rooted for him, but there are certain things that you can't allow to happen under your watch as the head football coach. And now I think he's reaping what he's sowing. I think this might be a little bit of karma.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, all that combined with him, it's not that they're not talented. Dustin, look up and down that roster. That's a lot of talent that they have. They're not getting the most out of it. This is very, very reminiscent of what's been going on at Texas ever since the end of Mac Brown, not getting the most out of a talented roster. Now, there's been some bad Texas teams, but when you look at Texas, Sark in week one, I know it's Louisiana. I know. But Louisiana's a good football team, especially on defense. They're well coached, and they never really struggled. A little bit early on in the first quarter, but Texas was the better, more dominant football team in that game, which kind of surprised me. I think Sark is getting the most out of the talent there, whereas as you look at LSU, Ed Orgeron's not getting the most out of what he has there. They're not developing guys. They're just kind of resting on their laurels. And I think that title with that Wonder team is a complete distant memory now, man. It is way in the past. They got a lot of work to do, man, and they have a tough schedule to boot. You think they're going to go play Alabama and do what they did against UCLA? You got another thing coming. It's going to be ugly. Speaking of Alabama, you said you laughed at Miami. I laughed at Miami as well. However, Dustin, I think Miami fans should relax just a little bit.
Yes.
It's Alabama. It's Alabama. Yeah. They're a machine. I know you want to think your team has a chance. I remember in 2017 when we played Alabama, we were coming off a pretty good year. I still didn't think we had a shot. I actually knew we didn't have a shot. And I didn't think that Florida State roster was completely terrible at that time, but Alabama's a machine. And right now, with the way that offense looks under Bryce Young, Bill O'Brien called what I thought was a great game. He made Manny Diaz and their DC look kind of foolish, to be honest. And the Alabama defense is much improved from last season. They look great. Derek King did nothing that he wanted to. Alabama, I hate to say this. I know we talk about it a lot. It's Alabama and everybody else, man.
Yeah, it is. And, I mean, the reason I said I was laughing at Miami, which is always fun, is not because what they did on the field. That's what I expected.
Yeah.
The final score was pretty close to, I think it was, 49-13? I said 40-17. I think, really close there. The reason I'm laughing is just because all I heard all offseason from Miami fans was, we got a chance. We're going to do this. And then it's like, the tide or the tide. But I do think that you have some positives to build on there. Derek King, it looks like he's actually progressed in his
I think
down the field passing. And it's just tough to see, tough to do anything against Alabama, but he did play some balls well. So I think they got something to build on. It's Alabama.
My big concern is what I said with them last week. Their pass rush, which has been really good the last 2 or 3 years, is not quite there. I don't think they have the guys at end. I'm curious to see what they do to kind of generate a pass rush in the game they have today. A tough out for Miami today to go play Alabama and to host Appalachian State, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but a little bit of a tough out. So let's talk Clemson, Georgia, and then we're going to move on to the news and notes of this week. Dustin, this game was a pack of you-know-what. It was not a good, entertaining football game, but I do like defense, and both defenses look outstanding. That Georgia defense is disgustingly good, man, especially up front. They rotate 8-9 guys. It's no wonder that Jermaine Johnson wanted to be an every down guy. He was going to be in that rotation, wanted to be an every snap guy. It worked out great for Florida State because he was the best player on the field on Sunday pretty much the entire game. But that Georgia defensive front is disgusting. The Clemson offense never had a shot, man. They hardly ever did anything. I thought DJU, because I'm not going to butcher his last name. Sure. Didn't play a great game, but I think the Georgia defense was more of the issue than the Clemson. I know you have some red flags. I understand, but I don't think Tony Elliott and that offense are going to be stagnant all year. But against really good defense, with that offensive line, they're going to struggle to block anyone.
Yeah, they are. And that's what the concern that I have was with the offensive line. And, I really thought in the fourth quarter of that game, I thought that the offense was starting to come alive, and I thought Clemson was going to force some overtime maybe, but they just couldn't do it. That defense, Georgia's defense is so stout. I was a little disappointed in quarterback play from both sides.
Yeah, me too.
Because there's two guys that have a lot of buzz going into the season. But, you mentioned it. It wasn't as entertaining of a game as what we'd hoped for, but it was still a great game. I mean, one-score game. But it's just I'm not looking for this Clemson team to dethrone Alabama this year.
Well, here's the thing for Clemson, and luckily for them, is the path to the playoff is now pretty dang easy.
Yeah.
No matter who they play, there's nobody on their schedule that I would put a win over them. Including our very own Florida State. I don't think that game will be very close.
No.
Well, I would like to see them at least compete for a half. That would be great. Although I'm not really sure that they will. But even now looking at the Coastal, there's nobody out of the Coastal that I trust to take on that Clemson team. North Carolina didn't look good in week 1. We talked about that last week. They kind of got their butts whooped by Virginia Tech. And then Miami, we don't know what to make of Miami because it is Alabama. So I'm really interested to see Miami play Appalachian State tonight. Dustin, anything else on week 1 that you wanted to talk? Oh, by the way, let's give it up for Tulane.
Yeah.
Valiant effort and a loss, but valiant effort. I'm going to take a step back on Oklahoma. I know it's week 1. I know it's Tulane. I'm going to take a little bit of a step back on Oklahoma as high as I was on them because I think that defense has a lot of work to do, and I expected them to take a step forward that they have not taken.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. You know, it's tough when you're Oklahoma and you have to go on the road in your own stadium.
I know,
Um,
I know.
but yeah, I thought Tulane did look a lot better than I expected. Made it a ball game. I mean, that was one of the
That
more
was great.
entertaining games to watch. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, hats off to Tulane. I'm kind of cautious about Oklahoma as well, although I think that they might have been looking ahead a little bit, or yeah, I don't know what it
Yeah,
was.
looking ahead at who?
Yeah,
At
you know
who?
they saw what Sark was doing to them boys. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to make an excuse for my guy Lincoln Riley,
I love
but
Lincoln Riley.
but
Future
yeah,
Dallas Cowboys head football coach, by the way.
yeah, he he'll get it turned around. Spencer Rattler will be Spencer Rattler, and that offense will be fine. The defense is what concerned me, giving up 25 to Tulane.
A couple things they need to be concerned about is Spencer Rattler protecting the football. I don't think he does a great job of that. He reminds me of 2014 Jameson that way. Makes some spectacular throws downfield, but he also kind of just tries to fit it in windows that don't fit, and that ends up in interceptions and fumbles as well. So they got to keep that under control. I think their defense is going to cost them a game at some point down the road. Real quick, I want to give one more shout out to my man, Mark Stoops at Kentucky. That team looks good, and I'm excited to talk about the game they have today, brother. I think that's the only good offense. Well, not the only good offense, but pretty dang close to the only really good offense he's had there. I think they might. They're sneaky in that SEC East. I'm excited, man. One more thing. Good win for Penn State. We talked about James Franklin in this program all off season. What was to come. It's really hard to go into Camp Randall and win that game, especially in week 1. That place was wild. It was loud. Wisconsin, you're under the tent of suspicion yet again. You can no longer get this preseason hype from me, man. My man Graham Mertz looked bad. I mean, he did not play well, and neither offense played well until about the fourth quarter. But red zone, missed opportunities, all that stuff. I think that's a great win for Penn State.
Yeah, I agree. That game that was a snooze fest. That was your typical Big Ten snooze fest, man. I couldn't bring myself to leave the TV on it for too long. But yeah, you mentioned Graham Mertz. That was my biggest takeaway from that was how bad he looked. I think he'll turn around. I don't think that's an indictment on what's to come from him, but we'll see.
We hyped him off of on one win against Northwestern in 2020 with no fans in the stands. I'm a little concerned about what he looks like going forward. Maybe Wisconsin kept the wrong quarterback if Sunday night is any indication of what Jack Cohn could have been. Jesus, man. Hey, West Virginia, Maryland was an entertaining football game. Great win, Maryland. I thought both teams actually looked good. I'm excited about both their futures. I think they'll both be just fine. Houston, what are you doing? What are you doing? We're going to talk about you in a second, but that is not a good loss for Tanner Holgorsen. Had a double-digit lead against Texas Tech and then blew it big time. Texas Tech gets a big win. That's a good win for Matt Wells, by the way, because his seat was starting to scorch, man, and that's a good win, no doubt.
Yeah, and that's a future conference matchup.
I know.
So
we're about to transition to that. I have one more thing I want to say. Actually, two more things. One, Jeff Collins, sneaky hot seat. Sneaky hot seat. Can't be losing to Northern Illinois at home in year 3. Can't do it. Not allowed. Can't do it. You should be better off by now. Georgia Tech did not look like a very good football team. Florida, really big win over FAU.
But did they cover?
What did I say? Last? Yeah, okay. So listen, I thought FAU kind of acquitted themselves nicely, honestly. Could have been a lot worse. It looked like it was going to be a lot worse, so good for them. Florida, you're playing the wrong quarterback. You have the wrong quarterback starting. You need to go with Anthony. Now, as a Florida State fan, I hope that Dan Mullen doesn't realize that. I hope that's not what he sees. I like Emory Jones. I think you can use him very much so in the way I think Florida State should use Jordan Travis and Mackenzie Milton. I think Florida should utilize both of their quarterbacks as well because I think they could work. But Anthony Richardson's the guy. He's got both. He can throw downfield. He can fit the ball in the tight windows, and he is an explosive runner.
Yeah, but didn't you hear what Coach Mullen said? That Anthony Richardson is they're using him as their Hail Mary target. He's lining up a receiver in the Hail Mary package. So I guess He's going to throw the ball to himself. He's going to throw the ball up like the old Bugs Bunny cartoon, run down the field and catch it. What? He's your best option at quarterback. You got him playing receiver in the Hail Mary package?
They could throw me at quarterback in there today. They're going to beat the snot out of USF. That's going to be an ugly football game for Jeff Scott, which is unfortunate because I like Jeff Scott. I think it's a good hire, but USF's got a really long way to go after that NC State game. One more thing. I was wrong. You were right. Dino Babers with the win. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what Syracuse did to Ohio. It's like Frank Solitz leaves and all of a sudden they hit the side of a mountain. What's going on down there?
Or it's like Dino Babers is a good coach. Come on.
I didn't say he wasn't a good coach. Never said that. I said he's at Syracuse and it's hard to win. That's what I said. All right, Dustin, real quick. Let's kind of transition into news and notes. Big 12, adding some new members, 4 new members, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF going to be joining the Big 12. Right now, the year of 2024, we know good and well it's not going to take till 2024 to get those teams there. It'd be kind of interesting to see if Texas and Oklahoma are still there when those 4 teams kind of cross over for a couple years. If there's some that would be a lot of fun. I'd like to see that. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it'd be a lot of fun. So, just your overall general thoughts on the Big 12 adding these 4 programs.
I like it. I don't think they're done. I think they need to go.
Yeah.
I think they need to go grab Memphis.
Yep.
I think they need to go grab. I don't know who.
I like San Diego State over Boise State because of location, brand new stadium. You're in more households there. I love the Boise program. I don't think it's a good fit for them because Cali is their recruiting pipeline.
Yeah. I think that those schools are going to be joining them pretty soon, and they're going to have a 14 or 16 team conference. It's not going to be a good conference without Texas and Oklahoma for a while, but I think it'll get there. I'm excited to see these new rivalries that we're going to have. I'm excited to see UCF go in and face a Mike Gundy team in Stillwater, one of those cities in Oklahoma. I think it's going to be it's interesting, man. I've told you before, and you're the same way. We fire up the old PlayStation and we throw in the old NCAA football games. We do conference realignment. Absolutely. We like to do it. So it's just I said it. We both said it. Texas and Oklahoma's exodus was the first domino to fall in a series of many, and this is further proof.
I agree. To me, this is incremental growth. And here's why I say that. Because I think the Big 12 adding these 4 teams is the best they could possibly have done. These are the 4 programs you want to add. They give you everything you're looking for. My only issue is with Texas and Oklahoma leaving, is this a power conference? Now, on the flip side of that, Dustin, does that matter anymore? I'm not sure the term power conference in 5 years is really going to mean a whole lot because, one, I think we're going to have a power 2, a nice middle tier, and then everybody else. But that's a different story for a different day. But I think what it does is it guarantees them a seat at the table because the winner of this conference is going to get a playoff spot and an expanded playoff. There's no doubt about that. Now, maybe they would have gotten one in the American, but this gives you a nice mix of those 4 upper echelon American programs. You're leaving out Memphis, like you said. I think Memphis joins eventually. Honestly, this is a great basketball league now because of these 4. Adding Memphis would make it even better in hoops. So, and it make it a good football program. You get San Diego State, also good at basketball, also good at football. So you're really adding a lot there. I think that's what ends up happening. But my point is, I don't think it's a great power conference, but I don't think that matters. I think what matters is this is incremental growth. They're going to be better off than they were in the American. The money they're going to get from their next TV deal is not as good as the Big 12 one currently is, but it's better than the one the American has. And again, just baby steps. Baby steps into making sure that your seat at the table is secure. And I think Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, and Houston have done that. BYU is a no-brainer to me if you can put aside all the religious ideology. They have a fan base that's national. They were never going to make the playoff as an independent. This is a really smart move for them. Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and also no-brainers. But again, to me, what this does is creates a damn good basketball league, for one thing. but also guarantees these 4 programs and the other 8 a seat at the table. Like you said, I'm excited for UCF to go to the Little Apple on a Thursday night. Let's go. Hey, man, I love me some Chris Kleiman, so that's a fun game. I mean, we get to see that game going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that West Virginia, they've got to be ecstatic that they're going to finally have some conference games that they don't have to change time zones for. So that's going to be fun.
Jesus, what a bad fit that. But you know what? If you're West Virginia, you wish you were somewhere else. I think you definitely do. But you take this because it could be a lot worse. You could be stuck with those other 7 teams where you have to keep traveling. Lubbock to Morgantown is not an easy trip. That is a really long way to go. This partners you with Cincinnati. It's a smart trip. UCF's not too far. So this gives you it really is. But compared to the other schools, it's not. But this gives you some traveling partners, gives you some closer games. Honestly, the game of Cincinnati, they're excited about that, as they should be. West Virginia, Ohio, close enough. So, again, I think this makes it a really fun – one thing it does, it makes a really fun football league. And to me, as a consumer, that's all I ask for, is you give me a fun football league. Now, the trickle down, the domino effect, what happens to the American, especially when I think they lose Memphis. Again, I don't think the Big 12's done. So, I think eventually when they lose Memphis, there's going to be a really big shakeup at the G5, Dustin, because you're going to have to – I think those group of 5 conferences are going to have to get together and say, let's maybe rearrange some deck chairs on this Titanic here, because you're going to have to do some geography really quick. Because to me, if you're the American and you go get some Conference USA teams, Louisiana, App State, whatever, that's fine. But does that really do you any good in the long run? Or could you put together your best geographically close conference? I think is really something the Sun Belt, especially Conference USA, and the American are going to have to look at. So there's going to be some trickle down, but I'm excited for these 4 programs to join the Big 12. That's for sure.
Yeah, same here.
Speaking of the old American, Randy Edsall retired / got fired. Our man, Randy, terrible hire by UConn. Listen, UConn, you can't lose the Holy Cross. You can't lose the Holy Cross. You lost the Holy Cross. Randy Edsall said, I'll retire at the end of the year. UConn said, no, you won't. And leave, man. So here's my thing. I don't think Randy Edsall was ever a great hire. Sometimes retreads don't work. It's working at Rutgers, which we're going to talk about, but it didn't work at UConn. UConn's either has 2 options from here, in my opinion. They need to drop down to the FCS. I know that's hard. Or they need to get rid of football and just throw all that money at basketball and the other sports that they're really good at. This is not working. It's not going to work. There's no wonder kid that you can hire that wants that job when your assistant pool is like $1.5 million. You're not hiring good coaches that way, man. So I feel bad for those players because they're about to get led to slaughter when they go play Clemson in a couple weeks. And so anyway, Randy Edsall, no longer a Division I college football coach. I think it's going to stay that way for good.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, rapid fire. Who do you think would win in a matchup, UMass or UConn?
UMass.
I think there are no winners. There are no winners in that.
I say, first of all, I don't know if they play this year. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but if they do, Walt Bell's going to get him a big win. All right, Walt. Okay. Oh, UConn. Look, they lost to Holy Cross. Holy Cross.
They gave up a fat man touchdown to Holy Cross.
Holy Cross isn't even a good Pat League team, man. You can't lose that game. So I don't want to spend a ton of time. I just think from here they've got 2 options: FCS or cut the program entirely, which is sad to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I know. Well, no one that feels that way. I'm sure there's a lot of UConn donors that are like, hey, man, can we stop with this nonsense? It's just not working anymore. All right, Dustin. Week 2, we are here. Okay. Here's what happens in week 2, man. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Week 2 normally is like the sleepy week. You get up for week 1. There's a lot of big games, a lot to talk about. Then you look at the week 2 schedule and you're like, oh, but we know damn well those are the weeks where chaos happens. Something crazy happens and you're glued to the TV anyway. That's why college football is so great. So There are some big games. There's not as many detailed breakdowns this week, luckily for everybody else. But we have a lot of games to talk about, man. Here's the big one of the week, or what we hope is the big one of the week. Oregon goes on the road to the Horseshoe at Ohio State, 12 p.m. Fox, big noon Saturday. I like that they put these big games at noon on Fox. I think it creates, the opposite of what ESPN done, which is put their big game at night. I think it's really good to have a game at noon people want to actually see. So Oregon at Ohio State. We don't know the health of Kayvon Thibodeaux. We hope he's healthy, but it looks like a sprained ankle may be it. I'll just go ahead and talk about Oregon really quick. A.J. Brown is average. We knew that at Boston College. We saw that. I don't think he's their best fit at quarterback. I kind of hope they find someone else that can run what Mario Cristobal wants to do. I don't love what Mario Cristobal wants to do on offense, though. If you have A.J. Brown, let him run. Let him run. Let them do some very innovative and unique things. They kind of like bang their head against the wall because they want to be ground and pound. If that's not what you have at quarterback, you got to come up with something creative. Hopefully against Fresno, they just decided to be very vanilla and not show a bunch. They barely got out of there with a win, by the way, which I believe we both called. Oregon looks like the worst team going into this game. I know Minnesota played Ohio State tough, but Ohio State looked really good in the second half against Minnesota, especially on offense. CJ Stroud settled in. I love Olave and the weapons they have. Trevion Henderson, really good running back. To me, this comes down to the recruiting depth, Dustin. It's a 14.5 spread. There's not one player on Ohio State. If they were out, I think change the outlook of this game. With Oregon, you have that. If the Thibodeaux is not playing, I don't like Oregon's chances at all because I don't think they can generate a pass rush. I'm going to go Ohio State, and I'm not. The 14.5 scares me off of picking the cover. I'm going to stay with Oregon covers, but I think Ohio State wins comfortably.
Well, the line that I saw when it closed was Ohio State minus 13.5.
Ooh, it's gone up.
That point changes a lot. So
well, let's use yours.
Yeah, Ohio State by a couple scores, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's okay. Ohio State by 2 touchdowns plus. That changes
the hook.
things.
I'll be honest. The hook either way scares me.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So, and especially considering Oregon is just 1-5 against the spread in its last 6 games, that point could make or break a lot as far as that number goes. You mentioned Oregon potentially being without Kayvon Thibodeaux, the best football player in America, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
That's big. If he can get on the field, then I think that might swing some things for Oregon to establish some things on defense. The big matchup, though, is going to be Chris Olave versus Michael Wright. That is
absolutely
first-round draft picks right there. A stud wide receiver for Ohio State, stud defensive back for Oregon. Can Anthony Brown find some consistency? He did not look good against Fresno State at all. So that's going to be a big thing to watch there. But the matchup of the day is going to be Ohio State wide receivers versus Oregon's defensive back. That is a huge mismatch on paper. Ohio State probably has the best receiving core in the country, and Oregon's defensive backs look like food. So I like Ohio State to cover.
Okay.
It should be a pretty fun game for a couple quarters.
Yeah.
I look for Ohio State to pull away at the end.
One thing I think could go in Oregon's favor if they, play well is Ohio State's defense is not that good. On paper, it should be better than it is. I don't know what's going on there. You don't want to overreact to week 1, but it's not like Minnesota gave them anything they'd never seen before. They know what was coming and they still couldn't stop it. So I think for a quarter, 2 quarters, maybe even into the third quarter, Oregon looks pretty good on offense because I think their offensive line is really good. And I think they'll block it up well. It's just, can they stay around score for score with Ohio State? I just don't see that. I don't know many teams that can stay score for score with Ohio State once that offense gets in a rhythm.
Same.
Okay. So, Dustin, we're going to Knoxville, the city that you live in, brother. That's right. We're going to talk a little bit about the Vols. I'm going to let you go first, but I just want to start by saying Joe Milton stinks, pal. He's not any. Michigan's happy to have him off their roster. He looked awful after the first drive. He looked terrible. He completed like 2 passes. Buddy, it's game 1. It's an overreaction, but Bowling Green's one of the worst programs in the country.
Yep.
And I don't think they looked all that good, man. I think this Pitt defense is nasty. Now, they've lost some key pieces, obviously, but I'm going to let you go first. Just tell me what you think about this game and that line. It's only a 4-point spread. Or I got it at 4.
Yeah, I got it at 3.5. Pitt minus
Okay.
3.5. This is the Johnny Majors Classic.
Yep.
Johnny Majors was the coach at Pitt from 73 to 76, left and took over the Tennessee program in 77. He did go back to Pitt in the early 90s. I think 93 he went back to Pitt. So Tennessee's going to be wearing some uniforms that they wore for the first time in 1977 in Johnny Majors' first season, the orange pants. So that's cool. The last meeting between these two teams was in 1983. Pitt's 4-1 against the spread in its last 5 games. Pitt's defense is going to wreak havoc for Tennessee, especially like you mentioned, Joe Milton. Man was a statue in the pocket for a while, and then when he did run, he looked okay.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
I heard someone say, and this was hilarious, if you need Joe Milton to throw a 30-yard pass, he'll throw a 30-yard pass. If you need Joe Milton to throw a 20-yard pass, he'll throw a 30-yard pass. My man has, I mean,
he's got no accuracy.
No, he has no touch. He's going to rifle the ball. And plus, you take into consideration that Tyon Evans is rumored to be missing the game. That was Tennessee's leading rusher last week against Bowling Green. He might be out due to health reasons. Now, they haven't said it's COVID. They haven't said it's an injury. They haven't said it's the flu. It just says health reasons. He's doubtful for the game. I look for Kenny Pickett to establish some things through the air for Pittsburgh.
Yes,
that's a damn fine quarterback, and I think that Pitt should cover the 3.5.
My favorite part about Kenny Pickett was last season. Oh, I'm hurt. I don't feel good. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it. And then he saw Florida State's secondary the week before and said, oh, I think I'll be healthy. I think I'll make that trip to Tallahassee and see what I can hobble around. Boy, did he ever. Jesus, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kenny Pickett's a good quarterback, though. I think we both agree there. I like the Pitt defense, especially in this matchup. I just don't think Tennessee has enough firepower. They like to go fast. Sometimes last week I thought they were going too fast for what they have the capability of doing for now. Pitt's has more established. They know their identity. They know what they want to do. I love Pitt's defensive line. As a matter of fact, last 2 seasons, they have the highest sack total of any combined team. That's a great stat. Not for Tennessee, though. Give me Pitt. Give me Pitt to cover. I actually like Pitt really comfortably. To me, this is a statement game for Pitt, though. You can't go in and lose this game. You can't. If you're Pat Narduzzi, this is a game. If you lose, your seat gets a little warm. That's for sure. But I like the fact that Tennessee's going to be wearing orange pants. You know how I feel about that. I love the orange on orange. That's exciting, man. But yeah, I like Pitt, and I like them pretty comfortably, man. Okay, so here's the rapid fire from the 12 to 3 o'clock noon slate. Are you ready? Actually, this slate starts at 11 because obviously, Dustin, it's 9/11. We know 20 years ago, right now, a lot was going on in the world that kind of changed the world, drastically. The world changed in 102 minutes, as we've said before. We kind of gave our thoughts on this week's podcast where we covered the 2001 season. But just real quick, before we get into this breakdown, where were you? What do you remember? Anything else you want to say about the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001?
September 11, 2001, at this time, I was in Miss Dutton's classroom at Philadelphia Elementary School in Philadelphia, Tennessee. We were watching the news on the television. We were all standing there with our mouths open in disbelief of what was going on. I'll never forget where I was. I was in 8th grade, and the world changed in just a few moments. It was a terrible tragedy, and we definitely want to do our best to honor them, those who fell on that day 20 years later.
Yeah, man. I was at Spook Hill Elementary, fun name for an elementary school where Casper was the mascot. I was at Spook Hill Elementary, and Mr. Grain's 4th grade class. We went from reading BFG by Ronald Dahl 1 minute, and a guidance counselor comes in the door and says, I think you need to turn on the TV. And we watched the TV the rest of the day. As we've talked about, we were watching live when the second plane hit the South Tower. So we saw that happen in real time. That was something, man. It's something that you don't ever forget. 20 years later, it completely changed the world. I've said a million times, I'm going to say it again. The micro event that changed America is Columbine. The macro event that changed America is 9/11. So many different, the world became you hear it all the time. We live in a post 9/11 America, and we do. Airports are different. Cybersecurity is different. There's so many different things that came out of this. And again, I think you'll see a lot of in memoriam at Game Day. Mississippi State's got something good planned. I think, as we talked about this past week, they were the first game back after the attacks. This Virginia and Illinois game's got something planned, obviously, because UVA's got some ties into the military there. Army and Western Kentucky game is going to have something. That's why it starts at 11:30. Obviously, you've got Navy and Air Force, which we're going to wait on because as big of a thing that's going to be between the two service academies, those two coaching staffs hate each other. So that's a really fun game to talk about. But my point is, we just want to do our best to make sure that we honor those that fell that day. And I know, we want to use our platform to just, thoughts are still with you, man. America was a different place before September 11th, 2001. And yeah, man, I'll never forget where I was. It's one of those things you don't forget. We gave some really good in-depth thoughts on it on this week's podcast. So I'm going to send you there if you really want to hear our stories and everything. But just a completely different world now, man. No easy transition, but I wanted to bring it up because Illinois at Virginia, 11 o'clock, they're going to have a special 9/11 ceremony down there. I like UVA, and I like UVA to cover under Bronco Mendenhall.
Virginia's 5-0 against the spread in its last 5 home games. Not so fast, my friend. Give me Brett Bielema's Illinois.
Oh! I feel like you just want to disagree with me for fun. Okay. Western Kentucky at Army. Army wore down Georgia State last week. Wore them down. Georgia State was starting to punch Army people. Like, that is how you know they're coming at you and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Give me Army and Army comfortably.
Yeah, Army's 6-point favorites here. I think the ground game is just going to dominate Western Kentucky. I, too, like Army to cover.
South Carolina at ECU, 12 o'clock, ESPN2. We don't know what to make of South Carolina under Shane Beamer. Not a very talented football team, I don't think. I'll be interested to see what they do against ECU. Mike Houston, who I thought the score did not indicate how they played against App State last week. I thought the defense looked better. They just got to get their offense going. I'm going to take South Carolina to win the game just because I think there's big question marks on both sides. It would not shock me, though, if Mike Houston got himself a big win against an SEC opponent here.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me either. And, the line's only 2 points, South Carolina -2. I just think South Carolina's run game is going to be too much for ECU, so I like South Carolina to win by a field goal or so.
Okay. Tulsa. Tulsa. You can't lose to UC Davis. Golly, man. You cannot lose to UC Davis. Okay. Tulsa at Oklahoma State. It's 12 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. I like Oklahoma State big, even though they did not look good against Missouri State. But you got to remember who the coach at Missouri State is. Bobby Petrino can still coach a little football. So I think that game was closer than a lot of people thought. Give me Oklahoma State, the Fighting Gundies.
I think it's a lot better than they did against UC Davis.
I hope.
They're 13-point dogs here. I like them to keep it close. I like Oklahoma State to win by probably 10 or so. I think Tulsa covers.
Okay. So Florida USF, this game is at Ray J. I would say it's a home game for USF, but I think we know how that crowd's going to look. If you've ever been to Tampa, I think you have an idea what color are going to be in the stands. This is Florida. Name your score. I guess USF could play some inspired football for a quarter or two, make it look a little uncomfortable, but there is just no way they can hang with them for 4 quarters. USF has a long way to go. Give me Florida. Name your score.
Yeah, I went into this when I was doing the research just saying whatever the spread is, it ain't enough. Right. UCF looked terrible last week, 45-0 loss to the NC State. I think Emory and Richardson both play in this one and look good. Give me Florida big. 28.5 is the actual spread, but that ain't enough. Give me Florida big.
I don't think so either. Rutgers at Syracuse. Fun game. 2 coaches, 1 you're high on, 1 we're both high on. This is a fun game in the Northeast, an old Big East game, if you know what I mean. So this is a big game for both programs. It's a really good litmus test to see where these two teams are. I love Dino Babers. I just think the recruiting and the coaching under Schiano, Rutgers has surpassed them in that region as far as getting good recruits out of there. I like Rutgers, and I like Rutgers to win and cover. But, here's the thing. Actually, is Syracuse favored in this game?
Rutgers is favored by 1.5.
Okay. Well, then I definitely like Rutgers to cover. But I do think it's a pretty good football game well into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I like both of these coaches. I'm really high on Dino Babers, but I do think that Rutgers has more talent, so that's where the difference comes in this one. It's really a toss-up, but I think Rutgers will win and cover.
That's 2 o'clock on the ACC network. The Florida game is 1 o'clock on ABC. Toledo at Notre Dame, 2:30 on Peacock. First ever college football game live on the Peacock app. Any chance of a sleepy kind of hangover here for Notre Dame, or you like them comfortably?
Notre Dame's 17-point favorites, and yeah, it is weird that this game is going to be streaming on the cock. Notre Dame will execute better in this one. I don't know why you're laughing. Notre Dame's going to execute better. I don't think Brian Kelly will want to execute them like he did after the Florida State game. I think they're going to be hungry after a game that was closer than they expected it to be last week in Tallahassee. Spreads 17. I like Notre Dame by about 20.
Hopefully they execute and win and cover that spread. There might be some marbles on that game, if you know what I mean. But it would not surprise me if Toledo kind of had this game close into the early second half, but I definitely think Notre Dame pulls away. Okay, Dustin, that's all for that. The 12 to 3 o'clock slate. Here we go, 3:30 to 6:30. Let's start. I think it's fascinating for a couple of reasons. Texas A&M at Colorado, but it's not in Boulder. It's in Denver where the Broncos play. So kind of a neutral – it's not a neutral site. They just wanted a bigger stadium. This is an old Big 12 rivalry, baby. Here we go. Old Big 12. Old Big 12. You know how we like that conference. This game is 3:30 on Fox. Listen, I like Colorado under Carl Rell. I like them under Mel Tucker. I think there's some pieces there. I like Colorado's defense. I think – here's the thing, man. I think their quarterback is not bad. Like, look, it's Brandon Lewis. He's from Texas, so I'm sure he's going to play inspired football in this game. He's mobile, too. I like him with his feet. My only thing is I just think A&M is so much more talented, top to bottom. It's not that I don't think highly of Carl Dorrell and the job they're doing, but I really like Isaiah Spiller and that Russian attack from Texas A&M. I like their offensive line. They just kind of lay on you. They wear you down. I think, that's a good matchup for A&M as well. It's their first meeting since 2009. This A&M defense is maybe the best it's been under Mike Elko, although last year, pretty similar results. So I wasn't impressed with Haynes King. I know it was week 1, first start, kind of nervous, but I think, look, we know Jimbo Fisher all too well. He looked a little statuesque back there. I think that we were expecting more of a little Johnny Manziel in him, as people like to say. I didn't see that. I saw kind of someone who was Robe-tronic, and I didn't really like that. But I still think A&M is the better football team. I think it's a very entertaining game for a good little while. I think the crowd there will be a factor as well. Give me Texas A&M, but it would not surprise me if Colorado keeps this game close.
Yeah, Texas A&M 17.5-point favorites. Here's a fun fact. Colorado is 6-3 all-time against A&M.
Yeah.
Their last matchup was back in 2009. This is going to be a different outcome, though, for Colorado. Both teams are going to want to establish the run. Jarrett Broussard, he's a stud for Colorado on the ground. But the problem is A&M has 2 more than capable backs. You mentioned Isaiah Spiller. They also had Devin Achane. I have no idea if I said his last name right.
That's why I didn't say it. That's why I didn't say
it. Haynes King, you mentioned he didn't look great last week. I think he's going to look better this week. There's one thing that we know about Jimbo Fisher is he does maximize his quarterback's play. And he's a quarterback guru. We can't take that away from him.
No.
And if there's another thing we know about Jimbo Fisher is he's not going to allow his quarterback to play poorly and not get an earful. So my thoughts and prayers go out to Haynes King because I know that his rear end got chewed over the last week. So I think he's going to come out looking better than he did against Kent State. Give me the Aggies big.
I just don't – we know Jimbo's coaching style very well. Outside of that 2013 team, he just doesn't blow anybody out. His teams just don't do that very often. Now, what I mean by blow out is 20, 30 points. If they win by 2 touchdowns, I think that's a comfortable win and a good win for A&M. But I just can't see them blowing Colorado out because that's just not what Jimbo teams do. They eat the clock, and I think they're going to try to shorten this game as much as possible. And so I think a 13, 14-point game wouldn't surprise me. But 17.5 is kind of hard for me to get to unless it's a late cover. Dustin, here's the game of the day, baby. 4:30, ABC from Ames, Iowa. Iowa at Iowa State, the Cy-Hawk Trophy, better known to me and a lot of other people as El Assico instead of El Clasico. Well, you can't call it El Assico anymore. These two teams are really, really good, man. Close recent years, Matt Campbell has never beaten Iowa. Let me repeat that. Campbell has never beaten Iowa. He's had multiple opportunities. The last game they played, he probably should have. A couple years ago, they had like a 45 that Iowa somehow won. So there's a lot on the line here to me. This is the biggest game in Ames, Iowa for a very long time. College game day is on campus. Again, a lot of excitement. This may be the biggest game in Iowa State's history. And I know, I'm not using hyperbole there. I think it's hard to dispute. They play Oklahoma and Texas there, but there's something about that rivalry that's very unique. They play for the Cy-Hawk Trophy, which is kind of a bad name. You guys should rename that thing. But, yeah, man. I think we're overreacting to how Iowa State looked last week against Northern Iowa. Matt Campbell teams in week 1 just do not look very good that often. And Northern Iowa, good FCS program. I think they just kind of sputtered around, didn't want to show too much, got the win, so I don't really think it matters. Here's who I was impressed with last week that we didn't talk about, Dustin. Iowa. They beat the crap out of Indiana. Now, some of that I think is just bad clock management by Indiana. Their defense could not stop the run to save their life. I don't know how – I'm sorry, what's this kid? Petrus, the quarterback at Iowa. The more – I went back and watched some of that game over the course of the week. I don't think he's that good. I think in this game he's going to have to make some throws downfield. God, I have a really hard time picking Iowa State against Iowa under Matt Campbell because we've never seen it before. But you know what? I'm doing it. Give me the Cyclones, baby. However, I want a great game. I think Iowa has a really good shot of winning because they looked like the better team last week. But all the momentum for Iowa State as a program is sitting on this game this week. And I think if they want to go forward, they have to get the win. Give me the Cyclones.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa State comes in as 4.5-point favorites. This is the first ever meeting between these two teams where they're both ranked in the top 10. This is number 9, Iowa State, number 10, Iowa. You mentioned game day being there, and we mentioned before that this is a big season for Matt Campbell. This is the season where he has to establish that he's going to be a serious threat at Iowa State. Iowa State should get the ground game going early with Breece Hall. That's going to open up some things for Brock Purdy in the second half. Stopping Tyler Goodson on the ground is going to be the primary focus for the Cyclones defense. You got to make Spencer Petras beat you through the air. I don't think he can. I don't think he's a very good quarterback either. So that's why I'm taking Iowa State as well.
God, this could be a really fun, low-scoring game, which kind of complained about with Clemson, Georgia last week. But I think the atmosphere, everything that goes into it, I think it'll be a little bit of a different look. Special uniforms for Iowa State. Again, just so much right on this game. Look, Matt Campbell's, they worship the ground he walks on there, as they should. However, he hasn't beaten Iowa, and I think this is his best chance right here to get a big statement win and acquit yourself nicely within the rankings. And look, this is an Iowa State team that thinks they can compete and win the Big 12. I don't think so, because I think there's a team that we're going to talk about here in a little bit that is a sleepy, not underdog because of who they are, but sleepy team to win the Big 12. But I really like Iowa. Who looked better coached last night? You thought I was on drugs watching that football game. They look competent. Okay. All right. I mean, Coastal Carolina's a good football team, and they look pretty good. My man being the quarterback at Kansas, he's got some wheels on him, dude. I'll take him in Florida State right now. Are you kidding? Anyway, no, not Kansas. All right, Dustin. So those are the big 3:30 to 6:30 time slot games. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the rest of these. UAB at Georgia, 3:30, ESPN2. As good as I think UAB will be going forward in this season, I love Bill Clark. I love that defense. I just don't think they have enough offensive firepower to score a bunch of points against that Georgia front. Although we don't know the status of JT Daniels, if I were Georgia, I wouldn't play him this week. I'd play somebody else. Give me the Dogs to cover and win. But I think UAB makes it interesting for a quarter and a half.
Yeah, Georgia's 25.5-point favorites. Give me Georgia big. Their defense is too stout for UAB, so they should cover 25.5 easy.
Not a knock on Bill Clark in that program. No. I think they have a chance to win the conference. Matter of fact, them and FAU look like the two front runners to me in that league, so that'll be a really exciting race going forward. Buffalo at Nebraska. Scott Frost, don't lose this game. Don't lose this game. Don't lose this game. I tell you right now, if Lance Leopold was still there, I'd feel really good about Buffalo. I'm just unsure about their head coach and the staff they have there currently. But if you watched them last week, they still look explosive in the ground game. They still look like a pretty good Buffalo football team.
Yeah. 13.5 points.
This is the one game I couldn't decide on pre-show, Dustin. I'll just be honest. I'm going to take Nebraska. I don't want Nebraska to cover. I don't think Nebraska covers that 13.5 point spread. But I do think Nebraska can get a win, 7-10 points, get out of there alive, because next week you're going to go get your head kicked in by Oklahoma. So you need this win in a big way.
Yeah, 13.5 point favorites. Buffalo ran silly on Wagner. I mean, granted it's Wagner, but they won 69-7. They were up 63-0. So they proved that Jarrett Patterson, they're not going to miss a beat on the ground game without Jarrett Patterson. Nebraska did get the win over Fordham, and Adrian Martinez did look better. But I like Buffalo to cover as well. I like Nebraska to win.
It would not shock me if Buffalo wins this game, though. It really wouldn't. Because I love their run game. I think they're lightning on the ground. I just love the way they attack. It's a very unique system that they run there. They've kept the same system that Lance Leopold has, and I think it's a really good fit for the kind of talent they bring in. It would not surprise me at all. That's 3:30 on the Big Ten Network. Here we go. Cal at TCU. I don't know what to make of this game. Cal lost last week to Nevada. I thought Nevada looked like the better football team, but we love I love what Justin Wilcox does on defense. They just don't have any semblance of offense. It's embarrassing what they throw out there. I don't know what to make of TCU. Not really sure where they're at this year. It's at TCU. Give me the Horned Frogs because I think they'll score more points. I just don't trust this Cal offense to score.
Yeah, and if you don't trust the Cal offense to score, it's a good time to remind everyone that this is a rematch of the 2017
Cheez-It Bowl with them. Interception heaven. Oh, my God, bro.
The ugliest football game ever played.
It's terrible.
So, that was a 10-7 final. Go back and watch that game. TCU's 11-point favorites, and I like them to cover. This is going to be the Max Duggan show. I like what TCU is going to do through the air, so I like TCU to cover.
God, it's almost like the two ADs met after that Cheez-It Bowl game. They're like, hey, let's do this again. That sounds great. No, you're punishing the rest of America. Why did you do that? We talked about this game a little bit earlier. Air Force at Navy. Now, obviously, with what today is 9/11, this game has a lot of emotion riding on it. I think they'll put some of the heat that's between these two teams aside. This is not like Army-Navy, though, if you know anything about this rivalry. Army-Navy, those two staffs do not like Troy Calhoun. I don't know why. That secret, it's kind of a dirty secret of the college coaching business. For whatever reason, they just do not like that Air Force staff, and Air Force doesn't like them. And so there's some bad blood here between these coaching staffs, these programs. Navy is bad. It's really easy with this one to me. Air Force is a better football team. Give me Air Force to cover. Name your score.
Yeah, I mean, Navy ran the ball okay last week, despite what the box score is going to tell you as far as the final score. But this is going to be their defense is just not going to have an answer for Hazik Daniels in that Air Force offense. He's a very fine quarterback, yes. And so Air Force 6-point favorites. I think that they're going to cover that easily.
Well, that's the difference. Navy is without any kind of quarterback that can give you a downfield threat. Army and Air Force have one. So when you run that triple option, you at least have to have the threat, and Navy just does not have a downfield threat at all. Here's a fun game where you can basically just go right across the street. Houston at Rice. Dana Holgorsen, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Scott Frost. Don't lose this game. Don't lose this game. I like Houston. I think they bounce back. I think they'll be fine. But we both like Mike Bloomgren at Rice, who I thought acquitted themselves nicely against Arkansas. I think some of that was a little Arkansas starting off slow, but I like what he's building there at Rice. This is a rivalry game. They haven't played in a couple years. It would not surprise me if Rice kind of hangs around, makes it interesting. Give me the Cougars, though, to win.
Yeah, I mean, this is two head coaches I like. This is an old Southwest Conference matchup here. I like Dana Holgorsen. I like her guy, Mike Blomgren. I'll tell you what, give me Rice. They're 8-point underdogs here. I like them to win outright.
All right.
They were tied going into the fourth against Arkansas
before
Arkansas pulled away. And Houston's quarterback Clayton Tune, he was shaky last week.
He was.
So I like Rice to actually win this game.
Dana, you don't want to lose this game. You want to be able to hang on just long enough to go into the Big 12. That's what you got to do. You got to find a way to win just enough so you can get some of that influx of cash. All right, that's all for that time block. Here we go, Dustin. 7:30 to 11:30. I included this because the Holy War starts so freaking late, which is ridiculous. Anyway, all right, Dustin. This is a game I'm looking forward to. Speaking of old Southwest Conference game, we have a couple of these this week. Old Big 12 games, old Southwest Conference games. Texas at Arkansas. Two coaching staffs me and you are both high on, or at least I think so. I love what Sam Pittman is doing there at Arkansas, building a culture. He gets it. It's a great fit. My only issue is I just don't think they have the talent to hang with the Texas team that I was really impressed with. And you know me, if I have a chance to take a shot at Texas, I'm going to take it because I'm a low-key kind of a secret Texas fan, okay? Always kind of have been. I like the colors. I like the tradition. If I have a shot to take it, I'm going to take it. They looked really good last week on the ground. I thought Bijan Robinson looked fantastic against that Louisiana defense. I actually thought Hudson Card acquitted himself nicely. Sark is getting the most out of that talent there. I think Arkansas had a slow start against Rice. They kind of slept on a little bit of a look ahead to Texas, if you ask me. This is going to be the loudest this stadium has been in a very long time. That place is going to be absolutely slammed. Over 100,000 people there. This is a big-time game for Sam Pittman in Arkansas. It would be good for football if they won this game to me. I just don't see it. I think Briles versus that Texas defense is interesting. It's not like Briles doesn't have any idea what the Big 12 defenses look like, but I think it looks a little different under Sark. I like some of the talent that Arkansas has. I just think they're a couple years away. To me, this game comes down to the line of scrimmage, and I just think Texas has more there. I think they kind of run to win the game. Give me Texas on the road. Big game, though. I think it's a big game for whoever wins.
Yeah. Now, I do want to say, though, I don't think there's going to be 100,000 fans there because the War Memorial Stadium only holds 55,000. But I get what you're saying. It's going to be packed.
Hold on now. This game, are you sure it's at War Memorial?
Yes, it's Texas at Arkansas.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Hold on. This is live on the air. This is bad radio video. Capacity's 80,000 in Fayetteville. War Memorial's in Little Rock.
Oh, you're right. Okay, but still 80,000.
I know. Fine. Standing room only, pal.
We could both be wrong.
I say we're both wrong anyway, so who cares? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I think Texas did look really good last week against Louisiana. Hudson Card, I think he's gonna be a fine quarterback for Sark. Bijan Robinson, we know what he is. He is a superstar running back. KJ Jefferson, he's a good quarterback for Arkansas.
Yes, he is.
But the Hogs committed 13 penalties against Rice. You cannot be that undisciplined against this good Texas team.
Right.
Good Texas team. That's something that we've been questioning for years. Is Texas back? Is Texas back? They're not back yet, but this is a good team. So I like Texas to win by a couple scores, actually.
I think they're close to back. They're not back. I think they're close to back. You get a win here today, you really put a notch in your belt because that's an SEC team. Guess what? You're going into the SEC in a couple years. So It's about to be an annual game again. So I'm sure they're excited about that. And by the way, that is 7 p.m. on ESPN. I highly suggest watching that game. Okay, here we go. App State at Miami. Miami coming off a really bad loss against Alabama. We talked about that at the beginning of the show. App State's a good program. We know what they are. We know what they like to do. Got a good win against ECU, although I think the score was more lopsided than the game actually was. Chase Bryce is an interesting story to me. Starts out at Clemson, goes to Duke, then ends up at App State. I'll be honest. I don't think he's very good. I really don't. He throws an okay deep ball, but he's kind of a statue back there compared to some of the quarterbacks they've had in the past. Miami looked bad, but like we said at the top of the show, don't sweat. I think you're going to be fine. You're a talented football team. I got some question marks on that defense that I think weren't there last year and the year before that. But I love the Miami offense to kind of get back in sync with Rhett Lashley calling plays against that App State defense. Last time these two teams played, Miami went up there and beat the crap out of App State, something that shocked everyone. It's just a return game for that. I want to say it'll be close. I just don't see it. I don't see App State being able to rise up for 4 full quarters. Give me Miami to win and cover.
Yeah, Miami is 8-point favorites here, or 8.5-point favorites, I should say. Coming off that beatdown against Alabama, is there going to be a hangover? You got to shake it off early if you're Miami.
Yep.
Derek King I think he's going to have his way with this Appalachian State defense because I expect Cameron Harris and Don Chaney Jr. to get off to a hot start on the ground.
Yep.
So it's going to open up some things for Derek King through the air. Now, App State is a good team, and they look good against ECU. And they actually have the 5th best winning percentage in the country since 2015. So,
great program.
Under 3 different coaches now since 2015. They just keep the winning going. But 8.5 is too low. That's not a good job by Vegas, in my opinion, because Miami should roll in this one.
The linebacker play for Miami is an issue to me. And I know they played Alabama, so I get that, but I think there's even some lingering issues from last season as far as the linebacker spot goes. I'm interested to see if App State gets runs to the second level, how they respond. There are some really good X's and O's matchups in this game because of what App State likes to do on both sides of the ball. Okay, Dustin, big statement game to me, man. And I mean, this is a big statement game either way. NC State at Mississippi State, 7 o'clock, ESPN2. It feels like these two teams play randomly every now and then because of bowl games or whatever. So it's just kind of fun to have them play in a regular season. Mississippi State got the win last week against Louisiana Tech. Big comeback in the 4th quarter. I still thought they looked like a really bad football team. We kind of like Mike Leach, but I'll be honest, man, it looks like a weird fit there so far. Doesn't look like it's doing. This NC State team is good. They're not just pretty good, they're good. I love O'Leary at quarterback. I think he's really good. I love the ground game. They have 2 running backs, very capable. Their defense is nasty. They get after it. Former Florida State safety Cyrus Fagan gets after it. Like, he's a really good fit there to me. So I just think NC State is the better football team. They're going to show it in this game. If Mike Leach somehow gets this win, Dave Doran's got to look in the mirror. This is not a game that – I know there'll be clang-a of the annoying-ass cowbells they have there, but that should not be enough. I like NC State to win and win pretty big, man.
Yeah, NC State's 2.5-point favorites, and that's another questionable line for me. Mississippi State, they lived life on the edge last week. I was looking for Mike Leach to come, have his offense humming after another offseason, and they won by a point, and it took a late comeback to get a 35-34 win over.
And a blocked field goal. And a blocked field goal. Yeah.
Will Rogers looked pretty good at times last week, so I think that Leach does finally have his quarterback there.
Yeah.
He's just got to put it together, be more consistent. But Devin Leary is a good quarterback, and Devin Leary is that guy. He's going to be better than Rogers today. They looked really, really good against a very bad USF team last week. Wolfpack should cover this one easily. I don't see how they win by a field goal. I think it's going to be pretty easy victory for NC State.
Here's the key to Mississippi State winning, and then we'll move on. If Will Rogers can stay consistent for 4 quarters, that's the only way. But look, here's the thing. The blueprint on how to shut down a Mike Leach offense is out there, and NC State has the capability to do so. So if you're Mike Leach, maybe try handing the ball off. I know it's not what they do, but when they did it last week, there was some success there. Maybe just try switching in some run every now and then. He did it at Wazoo, a couple years ago where that offense wasn't humming through the air. They went on the ground for a lot, and it worked. So you can do it. It's just I don't trust that Mississippi State offense a lot against that NC State D-line. They rotate a lot of guys. So I think NC State wins a statement game. Both of these teams are states. Anyway, okay, all right, moving on. Don't you look at me like that. All right, 7:30 SEC Network, Missouri at Kentucky. Really fun matchup, man. I'm excited. This is the best Kentucky team that I've watched with my own eyes that since Mark Stoops has been there. They're fun on offense, finally. They're really, really good on defense, especially against the run. My man Will Levis likes to eat bananas with peels on them. I don't quite get that. That's a little bit of a different thing for me. I hear it might not be that bad, though. I don't know. Maybe I'll try it. You know what? Let's make a bet on this game, Dustin. Oh, I think we're both picking the same team, though, so I don't want to do that. UK's defensive line is nasty. This win is going to go a long way in the SEC East race to me because as we have some question marks about Georgia's offense, we have some question marks about just Florida in general. You know, there's not a lot to take away from that FAU game. Here's a game right here. You can go up 1-0 in the division. I like Missouri. I think they're building. I had them as a sneaky team this year, and I still think that they are. I think that offense scores a decent amount of points even against that defense, but I'm just really high on this Kentucky team. Don't prove me wrong, Mark. Don't do that to me. I may be a little bit too bullish on you. We'll see tonight at 7:30. Give me the Wildcats. I like Kentucky to win this game. In a couple years, both these teams are heading the right direction, though.
Yeah, I agree. Kentucky comes in 5-point favorites, and they looked incredible last week against Louisiana Monroe. Now, granted, Monroe, Coach Bowden's got some things, obviously with the passing of his father, being away from the team. You still expected them to look better than they did, I think.
That's a bad football team, buddy.
That's a bad football team. I think the Kentucky's going to roll again. Will Levis, like you said, he's a good quarterback. He's going to do what he absolutely wants through the air. I do like Eli Drinkwitz. I think he's a great coach. I'm very high on him. Yep. But I wasn't that impressed with their 10-point win over Central Michigan. I do think their run game looked good last week. And if they could run like that, they have a chance. But I like Kentucky to win and cover that 5 points.
I think Central Michigan is a pretty good group of 5 team, though. I know McElwain was out, with whatever happened there. I hope he gets well soon. But I think that's a pretty group of 5 teams. So not a bad win, but I understand, week 1, a little sleepy. This is a game that Missouri, I hope, will get up for.
Yeah, and I wasn't even just talking about the fact they only won by 10. I'm talking about if you tuned it over to that.
Oh,
game,
I did. Yeah.
Things. I wasn't too impressed with what I was seeing. So hopefully they can turn that around and impress me throughout the rest of the season. But I don't think it starts today.
I agree. Okay, Dustin, big game, big rivalry here out there in the state of Utah. 10:15 ESPN. If you guys want to stay awake and watch it, which I'm a sucker, so of course I will. Utah at BYU. This game is a lot of fun. This is a great helmet matchup to me. Every time these two teams play, I just love watching them play, man, especially when BYU wears those royal blue uniforms instead of the navy blue that they've gone with. Just stick with the royal blue, BYU, by the way. It's a much, much better look. Look, I'm really high on this Utah team, though. I love Charlie Brewer at quarterback for them. Great fit. I think that's worked out great. I love their – we've said this about 19 times today, but I love their running game. Now, I think the BYU defensive line, while it didn't look great at times last week, will be fine in this game. I think, they'll get up. They want to play. For whatever reason, Utah loses this game in times they shouldn't. And it always turns out that way. I'm really interested to see how there's a lot of intermingling on these two staffs. Some coaches have gone back and forth. So I think there's a lot of, interest there. Fun game. I think it's another line of scrimmage battle. I like Utah on both sides of the line of scrimmage just a little bit more. Utah can get a big win here to me. I'm really high on them in the Pac-12. Now, hadn't seen UCLA play yet, but I think, those are the two teams I'm highest on in that conference. Give me Utah to win, and I think they end up winning pretty comfortably at the end. On the road, big win.
Yeah, it's a 7-point spread. Utah's favored. The return of Holy War is going to be something I'll stay up for as well. Baylor transfer Charlie Brewer, you mentioned him. He's going to be the star of the show in this one. Tavion Thomas is going to get his on the ground, but I think Brewer's going to light it up. He looked very good against Weber State. Utah is they're just returning too much talent from last season, and BYU's got a banged up receiving core. They're down 3 receivers, so they're missing some depth there. So I just think that's going to make life tough for Jaren Hall to get anything going through the air for BYU. give me Utah by a couple scores.
BYU lost a ton off last year's team too, quarterback and then a bunch of other pieces too. So I just think Utah right now is a better football team. But I don't think BYU's bad. I just think I like Utah a lot more.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Last set of games, Dustin. Memphis at Arkansas State. James Blackman got benched last week for Leighton Thatcher. Poor JB1, man. It's just not working for him. Once he did, Arkansas State looked like a completely different football team. This is interesting though. Fun game, sneaky fun game. 7 o'clock ESPN Plus. I like Memphis though. I think Memphis wins in the fourth quarter pretty comfortably.
Yeah, they're Memphis comes in 5.5 point favorites. You mentioned James Blackman getting benched last week, but also Lane Hatcher when he came in, he went 12 for 12 through the air. That Arkansas State offense has just got some figuring out to do. Seth Hennigan at Memphis, he's going to look better this week than he did last week for Memphis.
Hope so.
I think Memphis is going to win by about 10.
Hey, Hatcher's from he's a former Alabama recruit, so that man can spin it. I don't know what happened in the quarterback battle in camp. Maybe Hatcher's just one of those gamers. Well, guess what? It's game week. Probably time to get this win. So you might want to look in his direction. All right, Dustin, here's a game I only put on here because it's a rivalry. Don't quite have any idea about these two teams, except that they're both not very good. New Mexico State at New Mexico. We saw New Mexico State lose to UTEP earlier this year. Not a good football team either. I like New Mexico State, I like New Mexico. Name your score.
Oh, I was about to say, you go on New Mexico State. They're 19 point
No,
dogs here.
only you would do that against UTEP, which I tried to tell you.
Well, sorry for picking a fellow East Tennessean. I wanted to give Doug Martin the benefit of a doubt out there in New Mexico State.
Too late.
Terry Wilson, former Kentucky quarterback, Terry Wilson at New Mexico. He's going to look great in this one. It is a 19-point spread, and this is usually a close rivalry. So I actually like New Mexico State to cover. I think they lose by about 17 or so. So I like New Mexico to win.
Georgia State at North Carolina, 7:30 ESPN3. I think the Heels bounce back nicely. I was higher on Georgia State coming into the season than I probably should have been. They did not look good against Army. I think Sam Howell, Mac Brown, and all those guys bounce back pretty nicely, get an easy win, and they cover.
Yeah, North Carolina 25.5 point favorites. This is Sam Howell's bounce back game. He's going to need to put on a good showing because, believe it or not, you had people questioning him after that Virginia Tech game. So I think this is a bounce back. UNC big.
Washington at Michigan. What would have been a great game until Washington just pooped the bed against Montana, losing to the Grizzlies, which was good, respectable FCS program, but you didn't score a single offensive point after your first drive. That is not good. And I think they have some people out. I still like Washington's defense. I think they're really good. I don't know what to make of Michigan after last week. I would have had this on the detailed breakdown, but I had a hard time putting it there since I'm going to take Michigan to win big until I see otherwise. I just don't think you can lose to Montana, come into the big house, 100,000 screaming fans, and beat Michigan. I think Michigan wins and wins comfortably.
Yeah, Michigan's only 6.5 point favorites, and that line's questionable to me. This should be a pretty decent game for a little while, but I expect Michigan to win pretty big. Listen, that Washington offense is bad, and it's been reiterated all week that Dylan Morris is the starting quarterback. But I think Sam Heward's going to be knocking on his door for that starting gig. Of course, Sam Heward comes from a lineage of NFL quarterbacks. Brock and Damon are his dad and uncle, I think. But 5-star recruit, Washington. He's gonna come into this game, and I think he's going to do some things. But I like Michigan at home to win and cover that 6.5.
Jacksonville State at FSU, 8 o'clock, ACC Network. I actually think FSU wins big here. If you asked me a week ago, before I saw Jacksonville State play UAB, I would have said, okay, interesting, especially since last year Jacksonville State had a lead in the second quarter. From what I saw from both teams in week one, I'm going to take Florida State big. I think they experiment with some things, so maybe it gets a little boring, not as high scoring as Florida State fans may like at some point, because I think they want to experiment with some offense. I think all 4 quarterbacks may play. I think at least 3 quarterbacks play. I just think Florida State's too much. Give me the Noles to win big.
I know what we saw from FSU last week was encouraging, but I also know what I've seen the past few years from FSU. I can't trust FSU to win like they should win in this game. I finally found a spread on this one. I couldn't find it for a while, but it's looking like FSU minus 27. I like FSU to win, but I don't like them to cover. I think that I told you guys, told you in our group text, I think this is going to be one of those. Don't look at me like that.
Did you watch Jacksonville State?
Did you? Yeah. Did you watch FSU the past few years? We made Devlin Hodges a draft pick.
That was a completely different team and staff, brother.
I don't care. I can't trust FSU to win these games like they should until they show me they can. So FSU by about 17.
Ooh. Okay. You may be right, just because I think, again, they experiment and don't show a ton, because I know this sounds crazy, but the Wake game next week is big for the Noles and Mike Norvell. Okay. Stanford at USC, 10:30 ESPN Fox, on Fox. I think USC wins big. Stanford's got a lot of problems. I think the Trojans roll in this game.
Yeah. Keaton Slovis is going to come out slinging that thing. I don't like them to cover, actually. 17.5 points.
That's
I
a
like
lot.
Stanford. It's a lot. I like Stanford to keep it closer than that, but USC to win.
If that K-State game is any indication where Stanford's headed this year, it's not going to be very good. Okay, last game. I put this on here because I thought the start time was fun. Hawaii at Oregon State, 11 p.m. Eastern time, which, Jesus, guys. Okay. Oregon State, I thought, acquitted themselves nicely against Purdue last week. They're a fun team to watch. The rebuild there is real. Give me the Beavers to win and win pretty comfortably against Hawaii.
Not so fast, my friend. That's right. I like Shavon Cordero. I think he's going to be the difference in this one. Quarterback for Hawaii. Give me the Flying Hawaiians to win outright. They're going to cover the 11, and they're going to win.
Todd Graham, I think the game has passed you by, buddy. All right, anyway. So, any final thoughts here on week 2? Look, again, we told you at the top of the show, sleepy week. Don't sleep on it, though, for lack of a better term. I think this is the kind of week that people go, on paper, and they try to get chores done. They go out on town and do stuff because next week is loaded, by the way. I mean, week 3 is a loaded slate. These are the weeks where chaos ensues. So I'm excited to watch a lot of these games today.
Yeah, same. Should be a good slate.
All right. Well, we appreciate everyone watching along on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We saw the number, the number fluctuated. We understand that. Long show sometimes. I like to get a little long in the tooth. It's nothing on Dustin. It's all on me. So again, we appreciate everyone watching and following along. And we'll be right here next Saturday, 9:15 a.m. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, we'll see you next week.